You are watching Toon Matrix. Please watch the previous part for better understanding.
In the last part, we saw that an unknown young man killed Chae-gyu by drowning him in the bathtub. Now, the scene shifts to a restaurant, and we see Byung-go and Dae-el talking to each other. Byung-go tells Dae-el that the chief inspector said that he could feel how hard he worked on the truck incident case. He explains that, even after seeing a horrifically deformed body, even after facing a 130 kilograms man wielding a knife, even after trying your best, one can still get fingers pointed at himself by the entire world, and that's what it means to be a police officer. Byung-go advises Dae-el to not get too hung up on the truck incident case, while Dae-el remained in his thoughts. Then he spoke up, that the authorities asked to bring the evidence, but what were they supposed to do? CCTV, crime scene data, expert opinions. If the victim end up dead, all you have to do is pay a restitution fee once. However, if the person ends up surviving, constant payment is required for hospital fees or for any lasting aftereffects that are caused. Dae-el says that they even got a testimony from an insurance company affirming that such a motive was plausible, but how were they supposed to get evidence? He slams his fist on the table and says how were they supposed to find scientific reason proving what he was thinking. Dae-el states that the victim's mother recently committed suicide, and it was after Chae-gyu came to apologize. Then some people while watching news on TV comments that, how are they supposed to live normally when there are murders happening left and right? Byung-go and Dae-el also listens to that news, and Dae-el gets shocked after hearing it. The scene changes to the bus and we see that Jiyong is sitting, closing his eyes and listening to music. Then he gets a notification and sees the article about Chae-gyu's murder in a public bathroom, and Jiyong was confused. The scene changes, and while standing in front of a police station, Jiyong wonders how Chae-gyu was killed. This case comes in the jurisdiction of Sihyung Police Station. If he goes to meet his mentor now, there would definitely be some kind of information, and he contemplates if he should go. Jiyong wonders if his mentor is not suspicious of how Jiyong always come to visit after an incident occurs. Jiyong thinks, what is making him so nervous right now? He says that, it's possible that Chae-gyu was killed for another reason, and even if it was caused by a person pretending to be vigilante, it's just an imitator, it's just another crime. Then a sudden feeling hits him and Jiyong wonders what is this feeling he feels right now. He then decides to not visit his mentor and turns around to walk away. Then someone grabs him from behind, and we see that it's Jiyong's mentor. Before going ahead, let's make it easy for you guys. Let's call Jiyong's mentor Gobang and his colleague Duyun for better understanding. Jiyong gets a little flustered and worries that he might make a mistake here. Gobang asks Jiyong that what is he doing here, or is he just passing through here? Jiyong hesitates a little, then he bows down and says that he'll just leave for today, and after saying this, he walks away. Duyun spoke up and tells his chief that Jiyong was around this area earlier, and he thinks that Jiyong came to meet him, and he is probably going back because Gobang looks busy. He suggests Gobang that he should at least have a meal with Jiyong, since he sent him back every time before. Gobang after thinking for a while says that he don't have much time, but he then calls Jiyong back. The scene changes to ABC broadcast station. We see that reporter Choi is enraged and states that it hasn't even been broadcasted yet, but why did Vigilante kill Chae-gyu? Then one of her colleagues spoke up that, the Vigilante probably saw it on the forum site and acted. It hasn't been broadcasted yet, but the case was already infamous on the website. Choi shouts at her underlings asking what they were doing and scolds them for doing their work lazily. She asks if they managed to get Chae-gyu's interview. Her underlings while apologizing replies that they haven't. Choi grabs her purse and walks away saying to her underlings that, if they have time to be sorry then go out and start doing some investigation. She states that there is really no one here that she can trust with work here. After she goes away, her colleagues comments at her temper, wondering what's wrong with her, going on about knowing what Vigilante will do next and all sorts of thing. While walking through corridor she self-talks that she knows that it was definitely Vigilante who killed Chae-gyu. She says, Vigilante, do you know who knows you the best right now? Do you know who's on your side right now? How dare you scout for prey outside of my program? While gritting her teeth she says, that can't be the case. She says that Vigilante have to rely on her, and while making a face like she has been cheated on by her lover, she walks away. The scene changes, and we see that Jiyong is running away. He is sweating heavily and wonders why is he like this right now. The prey he was targeting has been snatched from him. He is panicking, he is nervous and acting strangely. He then stops in an alley, and while panting, he remarks that he actually knows why is he like this right now. The public bathroom where Chae-gyu was killed in was a location Jiyong had marked. Surveillance camera, building layout, the target's patterns, it was the optimal location he had marked after taking all those factors in account. But then someone, at that place, took care of him, and that person even used Jiyong's cleanup method. Jiyong concludes that there are two things that are for sure. One, instead of a cheap copy, a vigilante impersonator on the same level has appeared. And two, his process of scouting out his target and preparing the project, the person was watching it. If that hadn't been the case, they wouldn't have been able to copy Jiyong's plan perfectly. They are announcing their existence to him. Jiyong gets agitated and slams his fist on the wall. Jiyong then walks away, and on the way, he breaks his phone and throws it away. We see that someone was watching Jiyong doing all this from a car, and then, that car also goes away. The scene changes back to ABC broadcast station, and someone is tasked to broadcast the truck incident. The guy says that it's already over and he advises to broadcast another news. Choi denies the idea, and says that the major press outlets haven't reported this as a vigilante case, and they have to make this a vigilante case. She gives the script she wrote to that guy, and remarks that their objective is to become the vigilante's guide. Then another lady walks in, asking Choi if she saw the link sent by her earlier. Choi asks what is this, to which the lady replies that it's a new program by KSS and they are trying to imitate them. Upon seeing the program's name, Investigate 24/7, the lady remarks that they even copied their name and questions if they do not have any shame. In the news program we see that a man comes to anchor and briefs on an incident. He states that, several months ago, a woman in her early 20s committed suicide by jumping from her apartment window. However, was the death of this woman really a suicide? Before she died, did she wish to tell the world of what was going on? That was indeed the case. The woman was a victim in the controversial of Gajangdong student group rape incident. 3 female students were confined, assaulted, and raped by a group of middle and high school students from 5 separate schools for a period of 2 years. In this massive case that involved over 50 students, how many received a prison sentence? Not a single one. Instead, during the duration of the case, the parents of the accused berated and insulted the victims. They blamed the girls for seducing their children and causing the entire situation. The culprits' friends also messaged the girls, telling them that they had been put on the wanted list among the local delinquents. Even the officer in charge of the case made things difficult for the girls, speaking how they brought shame to their region, as well as lining tens of perpetrators in front of the victims and having them describe who did what exactly they did, one by one. One girl, who could no longer take the pressure, changed her name and moved to a remote school. However, the parents once again found the girl and flooded her with requests to sign the petition to free their children, forcing the girl to drop out of school once again. The woman who committed suicide had been repeatedly coming in and out of hospital due to the mental issues, which had prevented her from living ordinarily. However, the perpetrators of those heinous crimes are leading normal lives, studying in school and working their jobs. These students, because the case was settled, because they were minors, because there wasn't much evidence. For those reasons, everyone was let free. The Juvenile Act that protects the nefarious young, yet at the same time, the Juvenile Act that ignore the innocent children. The anchor says that their team Investigate 24/7 wish to redub the Juvenile Protection Act as the Criminal Juvenile Protection Act. In the end, what have we as a people learned and what laws have changed as a result of the horrible incident? Absolutely nothing. Returning to Choi and the lady, Choi remarks that their program is quite good. However, if they think that the vigilante will look at this program, they are mistaken. The lady was confused and asks Choi what does she mean. Choi replies that this case had a lot of female culprits and many of the perpetrators are still minors. She states that those aren't the vigilante's targets. The vigilante that Choi analyzed doesn't goes after women and minors. The scene changes and we see a man in black hood and a girl with bloodied mouth, while crying, is asking for forgiveness. She says that she already gave everyone else's info and asks the vigilante to let her live. The vigilante says that there was a cool phrase for this. He tries hard to remember the phrase and then remembers it. He states that, blame the law that released you, and then we hear a loud scream from the alley. Then we see a photo of that woman who got beat up by the vigilante, and it is being shown to a green-haired student who has clearly already got beaten up quite badly. We see that vigilante is standing above him. He says that the man may not recognize her because the vigilante beat her too much, but anyway, she told him that the green-haired man was a part of this. The man, while crying, replies that it isn't true. He tells the vigilante that he was only in 7th grade and was only following his upperclassmen. Vigilante replies that he saw his police report and the story doesn't match. We can't see the vigilante's face, but he may be making a really scary face, and the green-haired man looks like he saw his death. The scene changes, and someone calls Jiyong from behind, and it was Sunwook who called him. Sunwook tries to show him something, but Jiyong, while saying that he is little tired, starts to walk away. Then Sunwook tells him that the vigilante left a message at the crime scene and he killed 3 people. From Jiyong's expression we can conclude that the hooded guy who killed that lady and green-haired man was not him. So let's call the imitator Vigilante Imilante for our convenience. Then we see that the anchor from the Investigate 24/7 program comes on the screen. He stated that after their program was aired, they received a message from Imilante. It stated that I left a message at the scene, but since police won't report it, so I'm sending it to the press, and the anchor proceeds to reveal the message. The message stated that, in our nation, there are second-class citizens, they are the victim of the criminals. What influences a trial the most? The victim, who loses their entire assets in a scam, or receive a lifelong disability due to an injury, or the sorrow of the perpetrator, who carried out those transgressions. If you are not sure, it is not recommended, but all you need to do is become the victim of a crime. It is unfortunate, but the law does not have interest in the tragedies of victims. These vigilante actions are a crime. They not only shake the foundations of the law, but their existence itself is a heinous crime. However, this is an issue of empathy. The human instinct to cry when others are sad, and the instinct to detest sin. The nature that brings forth sympathy, compassion. Even when the law calls those actions are a crime, this heart that surpasses the law is the nature of humans. The original Lady of Justice covers her eyes from those undergoing trial, not feeling for either defendant or plaintiff. The scale of justice in her left, the sharpened blade in her right. She holds both unwaverable justice and unforgiving punishment for the judged. However, our country's Lady Justice is seated. She doesn't cover her eyes, nor does she brandish a blade. She looks people in the eye, and has no desire to strike with the blade. The book she holds to her chest is not a book of law, but instead a familial record. Those without your name upon the record, be wary. The law is made for them. It will be declared right here. The vigilante activities will not cease. Before the law, there is human nature of compassion, of justice. That is what we follow. You will not be able to catch us. But you can put a stop to us, when the victim's human rights are put above the perpetrators, when the law wipes the tear of the victims, the evil spirit known as the vigilante will lose their purpose and disappear in the morning sun. The scene changes and a news anchor reports that the Seoul Police Department, along with other departments, have created an inter-precinct investigation division in order to catch the culprit of the recent serial murders and assaults, known as the vigilante. The scene shifts to Police Academy, and Jiyong is sitting in a classroom, while other trainees discuss among themselves that it's only a matter of time before the vigilante get caught. They say that it's almost like he sent the message wanting to get caught, an audacious message and challenge to entire nation, and he even killed 3 people. Jiyong was listening in on their discussion, and in his mind he denies their accusations and says that the message wasn't directed at the country. Then one of them points that, in the message it says us, and says that doesn't it mean this is an organized group? Or is the vigilante trying to make it seem like a group on purpose? Jiyong with a grim expression says, that's not it, that the message was directed at him, that us is directed at him. That bastard is extending his hands towards Jiyong from the dark. They are asking to meet, while gently threatening him. Jiyong wonders who is the person that is imitating him. He then stands up and leaves the classroom. While walking down the corridor, he contemplates that who are they, to be able to find him, who even the police haven't been able to find. Did they investigate him? He then takes a look at the security camera, and remains standing there. The scene changes and we see police tape hanging around, a body marking and the splattered blood on the ground. A bald officer briefs to his colleagues that the victim was one of the perpetrators of the past Gajangdong case. The victim were dragged into the warehouse and were beaten to death. He says that case doesn't have 1 or 2 perpetrators. He wonders if Vigilante is trying to take care of all of them. Then the detective in black coat replies that it won't happen. The vigilante left police a message, and it's said to release the information of all those involved in that case. He said that he would not go after those who have their information revealed. Then the black coat detective asks Baldy to inform Anyang Police Station that the Vigilante Interprecinct Investigation Division Captain, Jo Hyun, will be coming. The scene changes to Anyang Police Station, and we see that Jo Hyun's team has taken away all the information on the Vigilante case from the Anyang Department detectives and informs them that they will take over the investigation from this point on, while the Anyang detectives remain still unable to do anything. Then Jo Hyun says to Byung-go that, it is really surprising, the Vigilante beat someone to death in the middle of an apartment building and there's no evidence at all. He asks Byung-go if he is sure that he conducted the investigation correctly. Jo Hyun shows a photo and states that this is the location where the Vigilante was first discovered, the location of Jong Deok-hyun case. He then turns around and says that he'll be investigating things from the ground up, starting from the beginning. He says that he asked for everyone's understanding and cooperation. And as he was about to leave the office, Byung-go spoke up and saying that he would like to give Jo Hyun a piece of advice. He says that the Vigilante that killed the last 3 people and the one that killed Jong Deok-hyun are different people. Byung-go's statement piques Jo Hyun's interest, and he asks Byung-go why does he think so, what is his reason. Byung-go replies that their methods are completely identical from the beginning all the way to the end. Even the way to dispose of evidence is the exact copy. Jo Hyun replies that he would appreciate if Byung-go weren't relying on something as nonsensical as a detective's intuition or something like that. Byung-go replies that that's not the case. He says that his target's patterns are different, and it may seem that the message was an audacious statement made in order to further reinforce the Vigilante's justices, but its actual purpose was to provoke someone, and there is only one person that the imitator aimed to provoke. After hearing Byung-go's reasoning, Jo Hyun gives of a smile. Then he states that it's an interesting argument. However, it's not like there is any clear evidence to support it. He says that he will keep that in mind and then walks out of the station. The scene changes to night time. We see 3 people hanging out. Then the blue shirt guy walks out saying that he is going to take a piss. He then looks around and meets up with 2 people. He says that he already told them to not follow him. Then one of them says that, at the moment the blue shirt guy has to remain under the police protection, because the Vigilante sent out a warning. Bluey shouts in anger stating that, that's why they shouldn't follow him to make it obvious. He says that if they both keep following him around, then it's like they are telling everyone that he was involved in Gajangdong case. He walks away saying that, Vigilante or whatever, it's his business and asks the policemen to not poke their noses into it. He warns them that if he saw them again, he will sue them. After some time Bluey and his friends are still together and one of them asks to go for a 3rd round, but Bluey says that he is down for today. He then makes them go ahead in a taxi and tells them that he will come later, and while he was doing this we see that a dark figure is keeping an eye on him from an alley. Bluey then goes into that alley because he thinks that it was police who was following him and he is going there to confront them. He starts to look around, and suddenly Vigilante comes from behind and grabs him by neck in a choking position. Bluey bursts out in tears and he starts to cough due to Vigilante choking him. Vigilante says that he gave Bluey time to go to media and publicly apologize, but why didn't he do anything? Bluey says that he didn't know, and blames it on police saying that they didn't tell him about it. Then Vigilante asks him to tell his friends very clearly to do what Vigilante says if they don't want to meet him. Bluey thanks Vigilante for sparing him, but to his dismay, Vigilante says, who said he'll let Bluey live. If they discover him then his friends will definitely understand, and after this conversation the alley returns to silent mode. The scene changes and we see that director Guak of ABC Broadcast is on a call with reporter Choi and is shouting at her. He asks Choi what is going on, why is Vigilante acting after watching the program Investigate 24/7. He says that their viewership is plummeting, and asks how can an imitation program can surpass them. Choi from her office replies that, the one that's going around murdering people is not Vigilante, it's just an imitator. Guak orders Choi to publish a more provocative case right now, even if she has to make it up. Choi replies that if they do that, there will be a huge backlash. She asks to leave everything to her, or she with a cold voice replies that director can do it himself. Hearing this Guak gets flustered and says that he will give Choi one more chance, and then Choi cuts the call. Choi while looking at Vigilante-related article comments that it's definitely strange, and it doesn't make any sense. But, if the one going around killing right now is really an imposter, then this is the perfect chance to make the Vigilante hers. Then we are shown a mobile, and someone received a message stating that, those who imprisoned and sexually assaulted female students, driving them to suicide, those who perpetrated this crime, upload a public apology with your face and real name included. Those who do as stated in the message will not have the misfortune of meeting Vigilante like this, and we are shown a young girl's dead body. Jo Hyun has arrived at the scene where girl died, and Baldy states that this time as well, the perp sent a message to all those related to Gajangdong case using the victim's phone. Jo Hyun asks Baldy if he sent the message to broadcasting agency, to which he replies in affirmative. He then asks how did the perp manage to bring the victim all the way over here. Baldy replies that they'll know after the CCTV footage analysis is completed. Then Jo Hyun notices something, and we see that Byung-go has also arrived at the scene. Jo Hyun asks Byung-go what is he doing here, to which he replies that this much is in their jurisdiction. Jo Hyun takes the case file and gives it to Byung-go, asking him to take a look. While Byung-go looks at the crime scene images, Jo Hyun asks how is it compared to Jong Deokhyung's case, is it the same person? Byung-go replies that the person who wrote Heaven's Net and this one are different. Even if the methods are same, the feel is completely different. Jo Hyun remarks that Byung-go talks as if he is completely sure about that. While tapping on the image, Byung-go asks him to take a look at it. He shows him the method that culprit used in order to avoid CCTV and the nearby car's dashcam, then he shows another photo of the method that the culprit used to erase DNA evidence. He states that it is exact same as in the Jong Deokhyung case, and says that this is not something a normal layman can do. Jo Hyun replies that the vigilante is a policeman. Both Byung-go and Daeul were speechless at this statement. Byung-go says that even before the Jong Deokhyung's case, and after that, it was obvious in which case the vigilante was involved in. The people's patterns that he has been targeting recently are completely different, and vigilante is not the one to use the phrase us. He is and always had been a lone wolf. Jo Hyun replies that he agrees with a part of Byung-go's argument, but if he is allowed to posit, suppressing an opponent with force grants a great feeling of superiority and pleasure, especially if it is at the level of a murder. Even when repeatedly participating in such actions, the police are unable to catch him. Eventually he begins to feel that he is invincible. Furthermore, if the public praise his assaults and killings, he crosses the line further and further. What Jo Hyun is trying to say that the culprit goes insane. Byung-go argues that the message that the vigilante sent out is definitely directed at another person, and it's a message from new vigilante to join forces with the original one. Jo Hyun replies that he agrees with that point as well. Byung-go was confused and asks then what he means. Jo Hyun says, a split personality. Upon hearing this both Byung-go and Daeul were in utter shock. Jo Hyun explains that, on online comment sections where people rant about violent crimes, comments like, if it were me, I would kill that bastard or I'll wipe out his entire family are a dime a dozen. However, revenge crimes as extreme as that never actually occur. Even those who are tormented to the end up committing suicide. There are nearly no cases where the victim attempts to take personal revenge against their assailant. Even in situations where they are deeply involved, there are no cases where they directly take revenge, but the vigilante takes revenge for others. Jo Hyun states further that, to possess outstanding strength, meticulous planning, and quick decision-making that surpasses that of any normal person. The exceptional talent that is required to repeat those acts, as well as mentality capable of blending into the crowd after murdering a person in cold blood. A person who matches all of these conditions, it doesn't make sense that two people capable of this exist in the first place. Even if they do, the chances are near zero. Byung-go asks, before, didn't Jo Hyun himself said that the message was directed at another person? Jo Hyun replies that this is his hypothesis. In normal life, he has a great sense of justice and is highly regarded by the people around him. He believes that not only is he physically superior to everyone else, but that he is also morally superior. A truly earnest and righteously crazy bastard. And because of that, he possesses his own set of rules for his act of revenge. No matter how insane he is, no matter how frustrating and boring his restrictions are, he does not touch women and minors. However, in his repeated murders, he keeps seeing women and minors that deserve death appear over and over. There is enough reason to target them, but a righteously, morally superior man such as himself cannot break the rules he set. So, he resolved this dreadful contradiction in an absolutely insane way. Byung-go questions, did he fell into a dissociative state of his own violation? Jo Hyun replies that, he split his own personality in two. a righteous agent of retribution, and a ruthless murderer. And with this, the dilemma is solved, and all he has to do after finding his targets is selecting the most convenient personality for the occasion. Both Byung-go and Hong Dae-el are speechless at his hypothesis. The scene changes and we see someone typing a message on a phone. It stated that we don't have much time, the person we targeted committed suicide, but I think we should apologize with more than just empty words. Even when 4 people died, no one's doing their homework, and at last he writes that this is also his last message, and then the message was sent. Then the person wears gloves and starts to thoroughly clean the phone to remove any fingerprints, and we see that the person is none other than our MC Jiyong, and he packs the phone into a plastic bag. The scene changes and we see a dark figure in an alleyway, and he is walking while using his phone. He enters a chat room named Almighty Gajang Fam. The chats are too long, so I'll give you an overview. The chat room is the gathering place of perpetrators of Gajangdong case, and they made this chat room to come up with a plan to counter Vigilante. After sending some shit, they start to argue among themselves about revealing their info to the media. Then the person who was using the phone says that Vigilante will not be able to kill all 20+ people and will be caught soon. Then someone says that the Vigilante might be looking and reading their message right now, so he asks everyone to send a picture of them with current time written on it. Then all of them starts to send the photo, but Jinook didn't send it. And then a picture of dead Jinook is sent to the chat room, and a message which stated that he has seen all of their faces clearly. Everyone in the chat room freaks out and messages to call the police. Then the dark figure who was walking in an alley receives a message from Dong Young. He gets terrified upon seeing it, because Dong Young is already dead. The message stated, "You saw right, exactly what I am capable of, the police can't protect us." He messages that if you cooperate, you can survive, but if you don't, someone else will get that chance instead. The man who was in the alley sits down leaning against a wall and starts to think something. The scene changes and we see Jiyong jogging. While jogging, he self-thinks about crime and punishment. Once, Porfiry asked Raskolnikov, "You suggested in your article, in summary, that there existed certain persons who could not only commit breaches of morality and crimes as they wished, but that these persons possessed the perfect right to supersede the law. In essence, all persons are divided into the ordinary and the extraordinary. The extraordinary possess the right to commit any crime and transgress the law in any way, just because they are extraordinary. That was your idea, if I'm not mistaken?" Raskolnikov then smiled. He decided to accept Porfiry's challenge. We see Jiyong is also smiling. Raskolnikov said, "That was not my exact contention. However, I admit that you have stated it almost correctly, perhaps, if you like, perfectly so. There is only one difference. I merely contended that extraordinary people possess the right to leap over certain boundaries that constrain their justice, in order to enact the said justice, as long as their own justice allows so." Jiyong stops jogging and is panting heavily. He says that it should have been discovered about now. He states that he have to be cautious. He can feel it that someone is watching him, but he won't be able to catch or even stop Jiyong, after stating that Jiyong started jogging again. Then in the next panel it is shown that a dark figure is keeping an eye on Jiyong from a nearby building.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon.